Charles becomes king as the face of the nation changes. The longest reigning monarch in the history of England is now dead. The Queen is dead. Who is gonna replace her? Did Charles ever want to become a king? How the procession will take place? Is there any chance that someone else from the family can claim the throne? If such questions are also popping up in your mind, then you have just landed on the right video. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today, I am going to talk you all through what is going to happen in the first 10 days after the death of Queen Elizabeth II. So sit back and make sure to stick with me till the end of the video so that you don't miss anything. Now without any further ado, let's dive straight into the video. Elizabeth II's death at the age of 96 marks the start of a tumultuous 10 days for the UK that will see a queen buried, a nation mourn its longest reigning monarch, and a new king proclaimed. Well, imagine listening for all your life that you will be the future king and the day finally arrives. Though at the age of 73 but the day arrives. It must be very difficult for him, and why wouldn't it be? Should he mourn his mother's death or throw a party for becoming a king? Seems like a tough decision to us, and it must be for him too. Well, coming back to things as they are. Within hours, Charles, the eldest of Elizabeth's 4 children, will be formally proclaimed king in a ceremony dating back hundreds of years. At 73, he is the oldest person to accede to the throne in British history. The death of the English monarch is not something new, but still, it is in terms of the coverage it will get. The public has never seen the proceedings on social media before, but this time, they have got the chance to see what was being done from hundreds of years. Now the flags are already flying at half-mast as the country embarks on a period of national mourning. Normal politics will be suspended as tributes flow in from around the world. In London, the Queen's coffin will be placed in Westminster Hall prior to her state funeral, which will be marked by a public holiday. The next 2 weeks will be a jolt for a country accustomed to being ruled by the same monarch for more than 70 years. Longer than 85% of the population have been alive. His kingdom faces potential breakup as Scotland presses for independence and an uncertain position in the world after leaving the European Union. Here's a breakdown of how the early days of Charles's reign are expected to play out. So sit tight, as you are going to find the details pretty interesting. Day 0, the royal family announces Queen Elizabeth II's death. Charles automatically becomes king. Day 1, UK enters a 10-day mourning period, during which no government announcements will be made. Normal business of Parliament will be suspended as MPs express their condolences and pay tribute to the new monarch. Charles is formally proclaimed king. He is expected to broadcast a speech to the nation later in the evening. Formal details of the Queen's funeral are likely to be announced. Day 2, MPs will hold a rare weekend sitting as they continue to pay tribute and express their condolences. According to the Speaker's office, they will later swear an oath of allegiance to the new king. Later, the Queen's coffin will be returned to London. Day 5, coffin of the Queen expected to arrive at Westminster Hall for formal lying in state. Day 10, the national holiday, state funeral at Westminster Abbey. Markets will be closed and 2 minutes of silence will be observed. But how exactly a new king is made? By law, Charles automatically became king the moment his mother died, but he still has to wait for the formal recognition. The formal recognition will come from the so-called Accession Council, usually convened within 24 hours of the death of a sovereign. Must be pretty hard for Charles to be celebrated as a new king, few hours after his mother's death, but it is what it is. The Accession Council group includes members of the Privy Council, historically the sovereign's most trusted advisors. But mind you that the Privy Councils is not just ordinary thing. Its history dates back to the 7th century. In modern times, the Privy Council's ranks have been drawn from politicians, aristocrats, and clergy, but its origins date back to the 7th century Anglo-Saxon witan, or group of wise men who would advise the monarch and oversee the succession. After the meeting, the new sovereign will be proclaimed by the courtier in charge, known as the Garter King of Arms, who will make a speech from the proclamation gallery overlooking the friary court in the palace. That address is then repeated across towns and cities across the nation in a tradition that predates modern communications. Expect to hear, "The Queen is dead. Long live the King." It's also customary for the new sovereign to say something memorable, which is later formally published in the government's official record, the London Gazette. We can only guess what Charles will have to say. Will Charles choose a new name? Yes, a newly proclaimed monarch will be known as King Charles III, according to a statement from his office. British monarchs are entitled to choose a new name upon taking the throne. King Edward VIII chose Edward as his regnal title, although he was known to his family and friends as David. But Charles won't have to go through the problem of choosing a name as a previous King Charles, who reigned back in the 16th century. Though things didn't turn out very well for him, as he was beheaded in 1649 when England briefly became a republic under Oliver Cromwell. Though Charles will not be wanting to draw any bad luck to him, he will be called King Charles III. Will Camilla be called Queen? Charles's second wife, Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, has risen in popularity as Britain moved on after the early death of Diana, Princess of Wales, in a car crash in 1997. In 2022, Queen Elizabeth instructed that her daughter-in-law would be known as Queen Camilla, a reward for her support to Charles and her role as a working royal. So the Queen is not longer be associated with Elizabeth II, as Camilla will be receiving the title. Diana must not be happy about it. What happens during national mourning? Flags on public buildings will fly at half-mast, except on the day when Charles is proclaimed king, and books of condolence will be opened at British embassies around the world. But the public will still be expected to come into work and shops will stay open. The Queen's body will lie in state in Westminster Hall, the 11th century heart of the Houses of Parliament. Her coffin will rest on a catafalque and be guarded by members of the armed forces. Members of the royal family, including Charles's eldest son and heir Prince William, are expected to stand vigil, just as they did when Queen Elizabeth's mother lay in state in 2002. Members of the public will also be able to file past and pay their respects. When will Charles be crowned king? Well, Charles got to wait to be crowned as king, but the wait is worth it, isn't it? His coronation won't take place immediately. Planning will only begin in earnest once the period of national mourning has finished. Almost 16 months elapsed between his mother's acceding to the throne and her coronation in 1953. But it's unlikely Charles will wait as long given his age and reduced public deference to the institution. But whenever it happens, it will be indeed a worth-watching ceremony. The coronation at Westminster Abbey will be a major ceremonial event attended by leaders from around the world. His mother's was one of the first national events to be televised, if only in grainy black and white, and drew an audience of millions. But now the audience of billions will be watching this historical event. The service is designed to introduce the sovereign to his people and underline how the monarch's authority derives from God. During the ceremony, Charles will be anointed with oil and will swear the coronation oath, a promise to govern according to the law, exercise justice, and uphold Protestantism. What powers will Charles have as king? Charles's role is heavily constrained and largely ceremonial. He will have to stay neutral in politics, a potential challenge for a man who has in the past clearly expressed his views on issues ranging from protecting the environment to the failings of modernist architecture. No monarch has fired a government on his own account since William IV dismissed Lord Melbourne in 1834. No sovereign has vetoed an act of parliament since Queen Anne in 1708. Charles will attend the state opening of Parliament each year, but the so-called King's Speech he delivers is written by his ministers. So all that fuss and duties, for nothing? I guess not. That's not to say Charles will be purely a figurehead. He will wield considerable influence. He will see all government papers he wishes, hold weekly audiences with his prime ministers, and receive foreign dignitaries. He will also be head of the armed forces. British soldiers swear an oath of allegiance to the monarch, not to the government of the day. Will he be head of the Commonwealth? Apart from being the head of the estate, Charles will also become head of the Commonwealth, the group of 54 nations that has its origins in the British Empire. Though the position isn't hereditary, Commonwealth leaders declared in 2018, after a request from the Queen, that the position would pass on to her son. Though the Queen is dead and the world is gonna see a new figure, some things never change. The royal family is keeping up with the modern world perfectly, but King Charles will have to look after the estate in a much better way as the country's economy is failing and facing threat from the European countries. We wish him the best. The Queen is dead. Long live the King. With that being said, it's time for us to say goodbye, but don't be sad as we will be back soon. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe and bell icon buttons so that you don't miss any updates from my channel. See you all soon. Thanks for watching.